Hey everyone, I'm going to review all of the Steps to Wellness exercises that we do just for review for some of you that haven't been into the gym in a few years or those of you that haven't seen these exercises in quite a while. So we're going to go ahead and review. So the first one is the calf raise. So I would have a chair with you nearby for support if you need to. It's not a balance exercise, or it doesn't need to be. So you would hold on because I want you to be able to stay up for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and slowly lower yourself. Watch your weights. Back down, up. 1, 2, 3, and slowly down, up. 1, 2, 3, slowly back down. So you're trying to control the speed that you're coming down. You're trying to come up and over the front of the toes, whereas if you're coming out to the side, you want to make sure your heels are coming straight up instead, and you're trying to get as high as you can. Control the way back down. So from the side, we're not bending the knees at all. They're slightly bent, they're not locked out, but you're trying to raise straight up and slowly come back down. If you need more support, you can lean into the chair a little bit. If you need more to take some weight off, that's okay. As long as you're squeezing the calf muscle in the back, that is the point of this. And slowly back down. You could speed these up if you wanted to, where you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, similar to that. You're trying to burn them out, right? You're trying to fatigue the muscle. I would first work on control. And then as you know the weeks go by, you can kind of switch that exercise up to maybe go a little bit faster, maybe hold a little bit longer at the top, maybe pulse for a second, and then slowly come back down, right back up and pulse. So different ways to change that exercise as your weeks go by, right? Another thing is you could hold on to some weights if you have good balance, and you would do your calf raise with the weights and holding them. Again, you can add that pulse in and come back down. These can also be done seated. You can sit and do your calf raise if you need to start a little bit back a little bit so you're not having so much weight on your legs. It just depends where you're at. So the next one would be hip abductions. So we're working on the side of the hip. I often see a lot of variation with this one, and a lot of it is the way that our hips are designed, right? So if we have hip issues or we have knee issues, sometimes we can't keep a straight leg and come out to the side like that. So it might look a little different, but as long as you're trying to be mindful to keep the toe forward and you're trying to work right here on the side of the hip. So I would have a chair again, and my feet are pointed forward. My hips are up, I'm nice and tall, so I'm pulling my abdominal muscles in, and the foot just leave, so it's like I'm going to drag my foot on the ground as long as I can, keeping the toe up, and it doesn't go very far, and then back in. So I'm thinking of contracting right here and back in. So out and slowly back in. It doesn't have to be fast. Actually, the slower the better, so you can really feel that muscle contract and come back in. And you're gonna feel it on the other side too. So one side is stabilizing as the other one is moving. So from the front, I'm trying to sit up nice and tall, like if I had a wall right here, so I can't lean into the wall. And the foot, so this one is stabilizing, is up nice and tall, so I don't lean into the hip. The hip is nice and strong. And I come out. See how I'm not out very far? And then I slowly come back in. So trying to keep the hips level and back in. Out and back in. And it takes some core muscle to hold it for just a moment, so I'm really pulling in right here and it's coming in. See how I'm not opening up my foot? Really try hard to keep the hips forward, so you're going to feel it more into the hip muscles here than in the front. All right, so that is the hip abduction, and then you would switch sides. You also could do it seated. Maybe if you have a band, you would have a band here, and you could step out just a little bit and back in, step out and back in. You could also put your hands by your knees and you push out and then relax. So push out. So I'm pushing my hands in as I'm pushing my knees out, And that is activating right here as well. Out, 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 and relax. That's another way to do this one. All right, so the next one is leg extensions or knee extensions, so working the quad or lunges, okay? So if you're seated, you sit up nice and tall, so I'm a little bit away from the chair. The foot is gonna rise just a little bit, just off of the mat, and I'm gonna come out straight, so toe is up, and I'm really squeezing this thigh muscle and slowly back down, and I kick back out, nice and strong, squeezing, and back down. Out and back down. So there's a muscle on the inside of the thigh above the knee, and we're really trying to squeeze that muscle as we're up and slowly back down. And really make sure you're sitting up nice and tall and back down, and then you would switch sides. Another option is the squat, oh no, sorry, the lunge. And so I would have a chair nearby for support. One foot is gonna come forward, and the other foot is gonna step back. So I'm kind of in a longer stride. My back foot, the toe is down and the heel is up, and that's gonna allow motion to go down. If my heel is down, I have no motion to bring myself down unless I was to turn in awkward positions. So my hip is kind of right by the side of the chair here, right by my hand. My back toe is planted into the ground, the heel is up, and my weight is distributed kind of midway. So I'm not forward, I'm kind of right into the back here, okay? So this one is just stabilizing for me, and I want to have most of my weight into the kind of the midfoot to the back. I don't want any weight really into the toe, and I'm going to bend the back foot, the knee, and then rise back up. So I'm really trying to kind of just lower myself down and back up. If your stride isn't long enough, you're going to end up kind of cramped in the middle here. So you really kind of want a longer stride, a little longer than you probably think, and you're coming down. So from the side, so my leg is back, my hand is still right by my hip on the chair. Okay, so my heel comes up, my weight is somewhat back, so I'm not starting forward, and I'm not going to go forward. I'm going to just go kind of straight down and back up, trying to keep your hips straight. If we're tight, we tend to open up our hips a little bit, so we're trying to make them forward as you go down. What I see often is I see this, but really you're putting a lot of pressure on your knee, and you don't want to do that. So a good thing to think about, if you have a mirror or someone close by that can kind of check out your form, you want to make sure the knee is in line with the ankle. It can come forward a little bit, but you don't want to go much farther than that. So maybe just sit back a little bit more and come back up. And use the chair if you need to take some pressure off, okay? And then you would switch sides. Next is the sit to stands. So you would start in your chair about midway. I bring my feet out kind of where the chair legs come out, so I have a wider base to start with. I'm going to push in through my heels, activate my hips here, pull the core in, and lift myself up. If you need to, you can use your hands. Try not to, and then just use them if you need to. For more core function, your hands are going to come here. If you need more for balance, your hands can come out here. But I'm going to kind of dig my heels in, right? So I'm pushing my heels in, so I'm activating my quads and my hips, so my knees do not go in. They stay out, okay? So if you had a band, it's like you're pulling the band away from each other, and you're going to push up, squeeze the glutes at the top. To go back down, don't bend your knees first. Hinge your hips back, chest is staying nice and proud and up. Hinge, hinge, hinge back, so really pushing the hips back, and then you sit. Often what I see is this, like you're going to push off from your legs and then they come out. What that is doing is it's not activating your hips at all. It's using more kind of, it's pushing off of itself here, and that puts you in a really vulnerable position for your hips and your knees. Seeing that torque here, so you want them to stay out and push out through the hips, okay? Often, another thing that I see is you bend forward and then you push your hips back. You don't want to do that either. when your knees are forward, that puts also pressure on your knees that isn't necessary. So I push my hips back, and that should alleviate that a little bit better, okay? So up, really pull the belly button in, and slow and control your way down. If you don't want to use the chair, then that would be progressed to a squat. So you can still have the chair there as a reference. So I would kind of maybe tap and then come back up. So tap the chair, really pull the belly in and back up. And I'm squeezing my glutes at the top of the position and then coming back down. And the chair is just a guide, so I know how far to go down, down, and back up. And really see if you can pull your core in as you're coming up and as you're going back down. Great. Okay, so arms are next. So I'm going to grab my weights. So we have shoulder abductions, and what this is, we're going into the scapular plane, which is kind of not in front. It's not out to the side. It's right in between. So it's this 45-degree angle here, okay? 30 to 40, 45. So I grab both of my weights. My shoulders, I really want to set them back and down. So they're not going to become accessories up here, right? They stay down. I bend my knees so my core is really pulled in, so everything is supported down below. My thumbs are going to be at the top, okay? So they're not this way and they're not pointed down. The thumbs are kind of at the top of the weights, and then they lower slowly back down. All right, so we come up only to shoulder height, and then slowly back down. Up, and slowly back down. What I don't want to see is this, kind of like a worm roll to get them up, or really bringing your arms up like this. That means your weights are too heavy. You want to be able to use your core, squeeze your glutes, and lift them, right? And then slowly back down. You can also do this seated if you need to take some weight off, or if your back starts to hurt and you need some more support. You can also do this seated as well. All right, next is overhead press. So I'm just going to start seated because it can also be done seated. So I'm going to start almost kind of in a goalpost position. Right about here, my palms are facing forward, elbows are back, and I come up over my head, and then I slowly come back down to kind of like a 90-degree angle in both elbows, up and slowly back down. You might not be able to get straight up, and that's okay. If they have to be a little bit wider, that's okay. You're just trying to lift up and slowly come back down. So the weights are trying to stay similar, kind of near your ears. You don't want to have them start to come forward. However, it is an option if this is pulling too much in here, you can actually bring the elbows forward and push up this way. This would be a modification if you're having shoulder pain or if it's too much of a stretch to be out to that 90 degrees. All right, and that can also be done standing. Bicep curls would be next. So my shoulders would get pushed back, my elbows kind of tuck into the sides right here so the elbows don't move forward. Palms are forward, so I kind of push my elbows in, shoulders are squeezed back, and I lift up, squeeze at the top, and then slowly lower them back all the way down. Back up, lower them all the way down, no cheating and stopping in the middle, all the way down, okay? And make sure your shoulders are squeezed in the back. If you're standing, you can squeeze your butt as well and pull your abdominal muscles in. And that would be the bicep curl. So next are triceps. So we took these out of the program a few years ago, but they used to be in, so some of you might remember them. A seated way would be to kind of cross your arm in the front of you. You have a flat back forward. You would pull the weight up, and then you're gonna extend back and slowly return to kind of this 90-degree position. So you extend back, so I'm squeezing the back of my arm and lowering it slowly out and slow. So this would be the tricep extension I'm sure many of you have seen this one where you're coming up overhead. It takes a lot of range of motion to do this one, and also you're putting a weight over your head. So I think the safer version, and it gets the job done just as well, is this extension right here. So that's the tricep extension. And then bent over rows. So if you don't have a band, we have moved to doing band rows, but you can also use weights as well. So you could grab both of them if you wanted to. You would hinge forward so your back is flat, so you're not here. You're pulled up. You're looking about 2 feet in front of you. Your weights are down kind of by your shins, and you're gonna pull, squeezing the shoulders in the back, and then slowly lower. You pull and slowly lower. Pull. So when I'm pulling, I'm squeezing my shoulder blades in the back together, trying to remember not to bring the shoulders up, but I'm squeezing back, not up, okay? So it should be here. You should not be here, okay? So everything is nice long neck and pulling the weights behind you. You could also do it single arm if you wanted to, or if you only had one weight, that's okay. You could do it standing. You've seen this one, maybe a bent over row using the chair. This just helps to stabilize the front here. So my arm would be down, my back is flat, my belly is pulled in, and I'm doing them from the chair. This would be another option. Okay, so that's the bent over row, and that would take over for the band rows if you don't have bands at home. So the next are push-ups. So a few options here. We normally do wall push-ups first. So you'd want to find an incline that's a little bit higher. You could use the wall. I just don't have great wall space in my place. So the mantle has worked out fine. So the higher you are in your incline, the easier. It's not always easy, but it's easier than if you're flat on the ground. Okay, so you'd find something that's stable. Your arms would come slightly a little bit wider than your shoulders, and you would do your push-ups from here. So your elbows come out about a 45-degree angle, and then you'd push yourself back up. Being really sure that you're kind of tucking your tail underneath, you're pulling your abdominal muscles in, and you're not arching your back this way, and you're not arching it this way. You're nice and tight and strong throughout the core. The lower your incline is, the harder it's going to be. So I have a trunk here that I could do my push-ups from the trunk. You could also do them from the ground. You could do them from your knees at first. So you would kind of come out kind of like here, my feet are planted, and you would do your push-ups from the knees. And then you could also do them from your toes as well. Another option is with your dumbbells. So you would be on the ground, your legs would be bent, arms would be out to the side, 90-degree angles, and you'd push the weight up above your chest, and you would slowly lower them back down. And you'd want to make sure that the weights are over your chest and not over your face, okay? And then you'd bring the elbows back down, push straight up towards the ceiling, and you would come back down. So that would be a good place to start if you're having trouble with the push-up. All right, so the same thing goes with the plank. The plank is similar to a push-up, but you're just holding your position basically as long as you can, from 15 seconds to a minute. If you get to a minute, you should be changing your incline to something more difficult. So if I was to do it on the mantle, I would either come down on my forearms, or I could go onto my hands, and I'm just gonna hold that position for as long as I can. So I step out, I pull my belly button in, tuck my tail, and I just hold it. All right, and I'm pushing away from the wall, so I'm not letting my shoulders sink in. I'm pushing away and pulling my abdominal muscles in. You could also do these from your knees as well. So I would come down maybe on the elbows, and I would just come out, drop the hips down, really pull the belly button in nice and tight. So again, if you had a tail, you're tucking the tail underneath between your legs, and you're holding this position for as long as you can. And then you could also come up and go onto your toes. So that would be the plank position. An alternative would be a reverse crunch. So you'd be in your chair, feet are planted, elbows up, and you're gonna lean back so the top of your back is gonna hit the bottom of the back of the chair. I'm not gonna lean into it, I'm just gonna kind of touch it and then come back up, okay? So I'm gonna kind of tap and then pull myself back upright. Come back, so I'm feeling it right here, and then I pull forward. You could also add a weight. If you needed a little bit more challenge, you would come back and then pull yourself forward, back, and pull yourself forward. You could also hold it back here if you want to, as a little more challenge. Hold for maybe 3 to 5 seconds, and then come back. And you're just adding kind of a static hold to get those abdominal muscles working. What's next? So pelvic tilts. We often do these on the floor. I'm going to show you quickly how to do them. The chair is hard. If you're at home, maybe there's a bench, maybe there's the couch, maybe your bed is a good way to do your pelvic tilts. I find them a little bit, I get it a little bit more when I'm laying down, and I can really feel my abdominals work and my pelvic muscles contract. I have a hard time doing it in the chair, but it can be done. So you would sit up nice and tall. Again, your belly button is here, and you're going to kind of pull the belly button in, and you're kind of rocking your hips like this and then back. So I'm tucking my tail and then I'm releasing. So I'm trying to flatten my back and release. So it's kind of like if I had my pants were too tight, and I would kind of be zipping up my pants and then let it go. And then I zip my pants up. It's really important not to zip like this. You want to stay up nice and tall. So it's this part of your hips that are rotating. And that would be a pelvic tilt there. On the ground, what's the best way to do this here? I'm going to rotate it just a little bit. Okay. So level 1 would be you're laying on the ground, your feet are on the floor, and your knees are bent, and you're trying to eliminate the space in between your lower back and the mat. So to do that, you're not going to push through your heels. Your heels are going to be nice and light. You're going to pretend you're zipping your pants up. So my belly button is pushing straight down into the mat, and now I don't have this space here. And to check yourself, see if you can kind of lift a little bit into the heels to make sure you're not pushing in with your heels to create that pelvic tilt. And let go. And we're going to kind of rock back again. So I'm just flattening my lower back to the mat. I'm not squeezing my glutes at all. I'm not pulling in with my butt. I'm just pushing the belly button in, and I'm kind of tucking my tail under or zipping the pants up, whatever analogy helps you the best. But I'm trying not to use my glute muscles, and I'm not using my heels. So this would be level 1. You would hold for 3 seconds, and then you would release and hold and release. So that's level 1. Level 2 is you would hold your tilt the whole time, so there's no space in between here. And then you'd lift one leg up just a little bit, slowly, make sure you're really pulling in, slowly lower it down. And I don't want to see a big shift in your hips, and then you would lift the other leg up, still nice and tight, and the other one would come up. So I don't want to see a big shift in your hips like that. Nice and slow, your weight shifts, and then the other leg comes up. So I'm pushing down nice and tight each time in each transfer as I'm marching. That's level 2. The next level is both legs would come up into the air. So I'm kind of at a 90-degree angle. And now I'm going to pelvic tilt so my back is flat. And this is fine right here. Sometimes just holding this position is a good exercise. Or you could slowly start to bring one leg down to the mat. So I'm just going to tap my heel. And I'm really trying hard not to let that back arch, right? So I'm keeping my back nice and flat on the mat. The other one comes down, really pull in nice and tight, and come back up, okay? So now nice and slow, and back up. Nice and slow, and back up. And really pull the abdominal muscles in your lower back does not come off of the mat. And nice and slow. Good. To progress that, your knees could go farther away. So that makes it a little bit harder to maintain your pelvic tilt. I don't know what to do with my hands. And it would look like this. And you're really trying hard to go slow and to keep that lower back on the mat. Okay, so that was 3 levels of pelvic tilts. So next are bridges. So you're going to be working the back of your legs, and I'm going to kind of go into that pelvic tilt position. My heels should be underneath me, and then I'm going to push through the heels, pushing up the pelvis up as high as I can, squeezing the glute muscles. So I'm feeling some pressure in my shoulders up nice and high, and then slowly lower down. So I'm kind of vertebrae by vertebrae coming down, release, and then kind of squeeze the glutes, rise back up, squeeze the glutes here, and then slowly lower them back down. You can change your foot position if you'd like to. So sometimes you can go a little bit wider. That's going to be a different bridge. You really squeeze the glutes at the top and come back down. You could also come straight in front of you and bridge from here and really squeezing the glutes, and I'm feeling it in the hamstrings. Another alternative is you can lift the toes up and push up through the heels, and that should get a little bit more of the back of the leg involvement. Another thing you could do, if you wanted to, so some of you might have a stability ball, I do not. This would be more advanced, so your feet could come up onto something, and I would be bridging up from here. So it just adds a little bit more height and a little bit more effort from the back of my legs to lift me up. Okay, so that's another option. Another alternative is you could put one leg on top of one another and do your reps this way, so you have a little bit of weight pushing down, but you really want to make sure your hips stay level. And you could do it that way. You could also lift up a leg and kind of like you're going to push it up towards the ceiling, and that could be a different way to work the back of your legs. So bridging. The last but not least, actually that's not last but not least, another alternative to the bridging would be a hamstring curl. So if you don't want to get on the ground, you would be doing a curl this way. So I'm squeezing my hamstring muscle here as I'm bringing my toe, and it's pointed straight to the ground, and my heel is coming up towards my butt as much as I can. My knee is not coming forward, it's staying back. This would be another alternative. Last one is the bird dog. So this one, your hands are going to be underneath your shoulders, and you're trying to get your knees underneath your hips, okay? So here is kind of the starting position. You can either be in fists, you can come outright. Some people that have a hard time with your wrist, you can grab something like a weight and you can put your wrist onto the weight, so then you're not kind of compressing the knuckles. That could be an option. So here we are. So we're in tabletop position, okay? So a lot of times when you're just resting here, you start to kind of sink your lower back where your belly kind of hangs towards the ground. So you want to pull that in. So to do that, I think about kind of tucking my tail and pulling my abdominal muscles in. The first thing you're going to do is, this is level 1. So the arm comes out, and notice how your weight shifts a little bit, because it has to. Some of your weight is coming off of one hand. So you come here, make sure you don't sink in, you pull your abdominal muscles in. Your arm tries to come up towards your ear, and then you lower it back down. The other arm rises up and back down. So try a few of these first. This is level 1. And what I'm trying to do is not shift my weight side to side each time that I come up, and see how your balance is. Right? So I change my weight distribution just a little bit each time I switch. All right? Level 2 is with the legs. So one leg is going to come out. So as I do that, Again, I don't want you to arch. You're gonna pull your belly button in, and you're gonna see how I'm out onto my toe, so I'm nice and long. Belly button is pulled in, and I'm just gonna lift a little bit and see how the weight changes, and then I'm gonna lower it back down. So if you're noticing to come up, you have to lean a lot. That's a little too much for you. Really make sure you're pulling the muscles in. Weight is distributed between the knee and the two hands, and back down. To lift the foot up, I'm really squeezing my glute muscle, pulling my abdominal muscles in, and back down. So this is kind of level 2. And then you would switch sides. So one is out. You have a curve, so you pull the belly button in, nice, and I'm pushing away from the floor, so don't let yourself sink in. Push away and lift up and really pull the abdominal muscles in. Tap it back down. Make sure you're distributed evenly. Back up and down. And notice how it's not coming up very high, because if I was to go higher, I would have to arch my back, and I don't want to do that. I'm trying to stay nice and straight and come back down. So the last step would be putting that all together, so one arm comes out and the opposite leg comes out as well. They can simultaneously go out, or you can go one at a time and make sure you're really holding everything in. So here we go. So belly button is tucked in. My left arm is going to come out to the mat. I'm pushing myself away from the mat. The right leg is going to come out, and then I'm going to lift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down. And make sure if you lose your belly, right, pull it back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back down. And make sure your weight is distributed between the back knee and the front hand, okay? So I tend to sometimes lean back, right, because I can put more weight into here, but I really want to be equally distributed here. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make sure you're really pulling that belly button in each time. And then you could switch to the other side. When you get more into knowing how your body is, right? So the first couple times, you sometimes don't know what you're looking like, right? So unless you have a mirror nearby to see, sometimes we think we're straight, but we actually are a little bit sunken in the middle, and we need to pull ourselves in. So when you're out there for the count of 5, think, can I pull my belly button in a little bit more? Is there a sway in my back? Could I lift my leg a little bit more by squeezing my glutes? So things like that. And then when you become more accustomed to that, you'll start to just be able to move, come back in, and then you could switch to the other side. So you could alternate sides. But when you're first starting out, I would stick to one side first and really get those solid before you start alternating sides. You still want to do that 5-second hold, and then you would switch sides, but that setup time is crucial. So don't rush those. You could also do those seated. So you'd sit up nice and tall. One leg or one arm would come all the way up. You're up nice and tall, pulling the abdominal muscles in. And then the opposite leg could rise up, and you're really pulling everything in. And then you would lower back down. The leg would come up. So what I see often is to get the arm and the leg up. I see this, but you really, just like when we're on the ground, you're really nice and flat throughout the whole hip, all the way to the shoulder. So you're up nice and tall, reaching up, pulling the belly button in. You slowly lower down, don't lose your core, and you lift through the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slowly lower, so there shouldn't be a big shift in weight. And you're here. So it's almost like if someone's watching, they couldn't be able to see the shift in your weight. So I think that is it. Let me know if you have any questions or need any other modifications, and good luck with your workouts. Bye.